Trump's poll numbers came out this morning, post ABC Ipsos poll. So I think Washington Post, ABC Ipsos poll. And here are the disapproval numbers for Mr. Trump. 62% disapprove of his job as president. 76% disapprove on the cost of living, 72% on inflation, 66% on the situation in Iran, 65% relation with US allies, 65% on the economy, 61% on taxes, 59% on immigration. As I've been saying, as these poll numbers continue to converge on many different polls, he is going to get 10x more dangerous and unhinged. Gas prices are now average of $4.43, and it seems that in Michigan, an all-time record for average diesel price has hit $5.99. Much higher than what it was in 2022. So yes, Michigan, which is the capital of the US car and truck industry, diesel is now $5.99. So we are heading into a huge oil and diesel shock in the United States, I would say. American administration is fast becoming friendless. Let me be clear, not the people of America, who I think are garnering quite a bit of respect, actually, especially America's young people who are very out front on saying the US is complicit in genocide, Israel is committing genocide, the war in Iran is illegal and something we do not support. I think some of the elections around the country are actually saying that when people have a chance to vote lately, they are voting according to these litmus tests. And as I mentioned before, the dropping out of Janet Mills in Maine is a key indicator of that. The fact that Abdul Al-Sayed in Michigan is actually now probably ahead in the polls against other Democrat leadership preferred candidates as for Senate shows that. Zoran Mamdani's election shows that. And there have been a couple of flips in Texas also at a mayor level and at a state level. So, we're getting that sense directly from voters. Meanwhile, as I was saying 2 or 3 days ago, I predicted that China would become more strident about what is happening in the Strait of Hormuz and that they will start becoming more aggressive about what has happened to their shipments of oil from Iran and the fact that their cargo was seized on its way to Iran. And sure enough, yesterday we found out that China has actually decided to take a stand. And what was that stand? China invokes blocking statute for the first time. This is regarding sanctions. The Treasury Secretary Bessent sounding more and more unhinged, like a man who is actually out there declaring war and talking about war strategy. Completely unhinged. He decided that he's going to announce sanctions on Chinese refineries related to Iranian oil. Here we go. This is from Dropsite. China's Ministry of Commerce has for the first time activated in 2021 blocking rules ordering all Chinese firms and individuals not to comply with US sanctions targeting 5 independent Chinese oil refineries accused of purchasing Iranian crude. Beijing called the US measures imposed under 2 executive orders an unjustified and improper use of extraterritorial law. The move puts multinational companies operating in both countries in direct legal conflict. Compliance with US sanctions now risks violating Chinese law and vice versa. Global banks and firms with dollar exposure face secondary sanctions if they continue dealing with affected refineries. Analysts describe the order as a significant step toward competing legal frameworks for global trade, accelerating the path to potential economic decoupling between the two powers. There is that word again, decoupling. For me, it was impossible that China would stay quiet and do a softly kind of as per usual diplomacy, quietly. They've had it. China now sees America as directly attacking China's economic interests. And all of this is being done ahead of Trump's supposed trip to China, putting at risk his trip to China, which he so wants because he loves the pomp and circumstance. But I think they are confusing President Xi with Delcy Rodriguez. There are no Delcy Rodriguezes in China. In fact, there are no Delcy Rodriguezes anywhere except in Caracas, the capital of Venezuela, where she will stay and do Trump's bidding. So they're getting very confused about China. The result is that China has just done a major smackdown. And I would think worse is to come, if not all-out direct confrontation in the Strait of Hormuz, which I'm going to guess the American Navy absolutely wants to avoid. Like I was saying, America is becoming friendless. Their poodle, Orban, is gone. The Gulf countries, no matter what they say, are also saying they don't trust the United States and are de-risking from the United States, looking for other partners. The only real poodle is Keir Starmer, who is the most unpopular prime minister in the UK and is flailing about looking to anchor himself in something. And we can see what he is busy doing, busy clamping down on pro-Palestine protests. Even Frederick Merz, the second poodle, has decided to bark a little bit. America has no allies left. As we can see, Canada is de-risking as fast as they can. Mexico is just watching in horror what is happening. Europe is literally fleeing. Asia is just saying, oh my God, we are in so much economic trouble. South Asia is so vulnerable. India has hitched its wagon to the UAE and to Israel, which is a losing proposition at this point. But the vulnerabilities of its people are rising and rising and rising. And everybody is pointing their finger at the Trump administration and at Netanyahu. But people are watching the American public with a level of respect and affection. And that is really important. That there is also a decoupling in people's minds between the American public and its government and the decisions of its madmen. Speaking of madmen, so Trump yesterday said that he is reviewing a new plan from Iran, which is not a new plan, by the way. Not a new plan. It is what Iran submitted yet again on Friday. Iran wants the lifting of the blockade. Iran wants to stop Israeli and American allied ships from going through the Strait of Hormuz without, they must pay a toll because they consider that reparations for the destruction in Iran. They want their assets to be unfrozen, and almost all the same demands they had as before. Trump is saying that he's reviewing the new proposal, but he doesn't think Iran has paid a high enough price for what Iran has been doing for 47 years. Oh? Wali Nasser had the best post about this today. He's saying, so Trump is saying war should continue because scores must be settled for what Iran has done to humanity and the world for 47 years. That is a new objective for this war and implies its beginning or end had nothing to do with the nuclear issue. It also makes a case for every country, especially in the global south, abused by colonialism, to reopen the file on their old grievances and line up to wage wars to settle old scores. It seems most of humanity opposes this war Trump wants to wage on their behalf and may be more interested in talking about other abuses of humanity. Correct. Wali Nasser is absolutely correct in my estimation. Mr. Rubio is rushing off to the Vatican to make nice with the Pope, because if he is to run against J.D. Vance, who is also a newly converted Catholic, if he's to run against him in 2028, then he needs a Catholic vote. So Mr. Rubio is now rushing off to the Vatican after saying that the Pope has no right to talk about foreign policy or talk about anything, going with that line, stick to scripture. Don't talk about anything else. But now he's rushing off to the Vatican to make nice with the Pope. So we can see what is going on as far as 2028 is concerned. People have very strong feelings about a gentleman named Tucker Carlson. I would really encourage everybody to listen to his interview by New York Times and Lulu Garcia Navarro's podcast. It's about a little over an hour, but it's really worth listening to for many reasons. I'm not so sure who came off exposed. At times, I felt as if the New York Times journalist came off as more exposed in her biases than Tucker Carlson. I am not going to comment further on this. I would just encourage everybody to listen to this interview because, again, this is now the way the American public is pulling on the left and the right and the middle. Very important to listen to this, whether you like him or you detest him. And finally, two of the activists on the global Samud flotilla were taken into custody, or rather were kidnapped off the coast of Crete by the Israeli Navy. Abu Saif Keshik, who lives in Barcelona and is of Palestinian origin, he's Spanish and Swedish, and Tiago Avila from Brazil were made to appear in court in Ashkelon today after Israeli forces intercepted their boats off the coast of Greece, very, very far away from Israel. They were the only two dragged off to Israel, and the detention has been extended. Avila has told their lawyer, his lawyer, that they were beaten, they were brutalized, he was put into incredible stress positions, and all sorts of extreme brutality was meted out to him. He's been kept in isolation and blindfolded. Israel is punishing them for trying to bring humanitarian aid to Gaza. As I've said before, Spain and Brazil are livid. Greece has a lot to answer for. Greece seems to have been complicit in this action and in this kidnapping.